Sesmu, Lord of Oils and the Wine Press, as a very interesting deity that comes to us from Egyptian and Kemetic mythology, and in some ways far more complex in his representation than the majority of what we would call Kemetic deities. Sesmu is known as the Lord of Perfume, the maker of all precious oils, Lord of the oil press, Lord of ointments, and Lord of wine. And typically when you see a deity associated with these types of attributes, typically very friendly. But this deity has an alternate side that we'll be able to get to very briefly that changes his perception in history. This is a true immortal god and comes to us from literature coming from the Old Kingdom pyramid texts. And he was substantial enough that there was a cult center dedicated to him at Fayum. He was also featured in shrines at Edfu and Dundera. And Dundera, of course, we talked about very briefly when we talked about Nabta Playa, where we find not only a shrine to or a temple to the goddess Hathor, but also we find the first zodiac calendar in existence. And these were very substantial finds, not only for the civilization and when they occurred, which is approximately 7500 BCE, but also its influence on astrology all around the world that would come following this. So we have this deity who is associated with oil and wine pressing, but then he becomes associated with punishment. And that component actually starts to define him far more than the other aspects of his personality. And he comes to us obviously from the ancient Egyptian or Kemetic civilizations that lived in that area, and the culture, of course, he influenced was the Nile River Valley civilizations, of which we've talked about a lot. He was never really depicted very often, but when he was, it was typically with a man's body with a lion's head and often holding a butcher's knife, although there we see him with either oils or wine in his hand. And at later times he was depicted more as a real lion. But as history progressed, he was more represented by the oil press itself than anything else. And oftentimes the oil press was depicted in place of the god or the representation of the god himself. Interesting as well is that he was a part of the entourage that protects Ra on his nightly voyage into the underworld. Not something that we would necessarily think of with a wine and oil and perfume maker, but there is a very, very savage side that comes along with Sesmu. And he is known for inflicting that savagery on people after death. If you were dead and you were a good person, he would offer you wine. Obviously, we know transitioning to the afterlife, you're very thirsty. We've talked about this. But if you were a sinner, he would tear your head off and place your head in his wine press. And later depictions of this deity became dominated by that imagery of a wine press full of heads. And it became more of his legacy than that of the perfume and wine and oil maker. But Sesmu, who has lived in our mythology for thousands of years, still endures to this day. And hopefully by talking about these ancient deities, that we continue to keep their stories alive. Thank you again for stopping in at World Chronicles. We will explore other deities related to the Nile River Valley civilizations, but also more of their connections through Dundera, which features not only the goddess Hathor, but also Asar, and now we know this deity Sesmu. Please, again, make sure you check out some of the other videos, and as always, I'm going to ask that you like and subscribe.